to me. There's no real.
You didn't bother watching this one, did you?
There's no real talking point. What are you doing that for? No. What are you doing that for? Why do we have pre-show meetings? Why do we talk about things pre-show if you're just going to pull the rug from under it? No, I haven't seen it because it's exactly what I anticipated would happen. Featherstone got drubbed by Leeds.
Well,
so I didn't waste too much time.
I would say
I kept an eye on the score on Twitter, and everything happened the way I anticipated it would.
There was an element of bad luck to the first try because it came from a sort of reclaimed kick by Featherstone that was ruled a knock on. I think it was knocked. I think the Fev guy caught it and then it was knocked out of his hands by the Leeds player, but it was ruled a scrum to Leeds, and they went and scored on the next set. The next try was an error from Featherstone completely of their own making, and then the third try, the John Moon try, was shown on slow-mo replays to actually have been fumbled a little bit as it went to the ground, and probably if it had gone to a video referral would have been ruled out. So that three try spell probably was a little bit harsh on Featherstone. Yeah, they made a couple of mistakes in the processes of those tries being scored, but there was a few things that 50-50s, let's say, that went against them, maybe 55-45s that went against them. And then they held Leeds out till a couple of minutes before the break, and they defended really well, and they were well in the game. They never really looked like threatening the Leeds line, but they never really looked like getting a pummeling. But unfortunately, at that point when that try was scored, it was 22-0 because of kind of the slight misfortune and their own errors that contributed to the so the first half they were really competitive. Then in the second half they were competitive again until the sin bin in, which it was for a cannonball tackle, so it was dangerous contact, and fair enough if it was consistently applied on that sort of tackle, because it didn't look the most forceful of cannonball tackles, but it did appear to be against the natural bend. So I can understand why the officials decided to give it. I was a little bit surprised that it was giving us a yellow. I was surprised that they were so certain that it was dangerous contact. But once they call in for dangerous contact, we've spoke about this before. If you call in for a dangerous contact penalty, it is an automatic sin bin under the rules, because they're trying to cut dangerous contacts like that out. There was one shortly after where it wasn't quite as just below the knees, kind of hacking, kind of like this one was. It was just a little bit above the knees, I think. That looked quite similar, but no penalty or anything, no fury. And probably the Leeds players kind of stoked up a bit of fury about it. In that spell when Lockwood was off the field, the game went away then. 3 tries were scored by Leeds. Very easy walking sort of tries. That's why Ablett had the running lane that he got, and similarly kind of with the other tries that were scored in that spell. So then it was just left for Brad Singleton with a couple of good barge over tries from clever close to the line play from Leeds, which we've seen with Leeds over the last 2.5 years. Well, most of last year aside, but yeah, it was comprehensive. Unfortunate for Fev that they didn't get a score at the end, but they, I think that 58-0 was harsh on Featherstone.
Okay, there you go. Right, so to Saturday afternoon, a sun-kissed afternoon down in Cheshire, Mark, as Warrington Wolves and Wigan Warriors faced off. 26 points to 27 in favour of your Warriors in front of 7,313, sir. We start with Tyler Casfan. Good entertaining game which kept me gripped right to the end. The Wigan returnees fitted back in seamlessly and with a difference, but still some work to do in defence. Warrington made too many errors in the first half and gave themselves just too much to do. These two teams would make a great £1 million game. You never know.
All smiles on Saturday, wasn't he?
All Tyler Tompkins fan. How is this kid has just created a monster, hasn't he? He's got his own little following. He should start his own podcast. Guess who's back?
It'd be better than ours.
No, it wouldn't.
He watches more rugby league than we watch.
Probably more than I watch. He's probably up there with you. It's just had a busy weekend, Mark. It's been really hard.
Him and Brian Davies, that's what we'll have.
Yeah.
Tyler and Bry.
That's it.
Yeah. Why are we suggesting this?
That'll be all our credit. That'll be all our credit in the bank, God.
Because I've just written the theme tune. I've had a Tyler and Bry. So you get it going like that. There's the music for him. Anyway, don't cringe. That works. Was it you that was telling me about the...
it was on the show last week.
It was last week, wasn't it? Oh, my word. Okay. Tyler Tompkins fan. Guess who's back? Sammy's back. The Wigan revival starts here. The Golden Edge is reformed, and Sean's going to crack a smile very soon. Tompkins for England.
Wire Joe said it was a scrappy game from both sides, but you can always count on us to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. The walking wounded Warriors gave us enough chances to take the game, but instead Ratchford and Patton took their chances to prove they can't kick straight. Marginally better in effort today, but basic skills are still eluding us, and I'm not sure how that gets fixed up. Big 5 weeks coming up for us.
Tom Eckley99 got in touch and said, as incompetent a performance that was, I can't help but feel that if Matty Blythe was in, we'd have won comfortably. So count yourselves lucky. He knows how to tickle our funny bones at the Super League pod, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, Tom, welcome back, Tom. Rich Wilkinson said, this was the best shit game I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Both teams did their best to not win. Surprise. Tompkins was lauded by the media despite dropping his regulation bomb and looking like Bambi on ice in defence. Surely a shoo-in for Man of Steel. Thank God Bennett has seen how poor he is at the top level, but it was his first game back. I never realised how ginger he is, and half the Wigan team, why are just fucking clueless.
Paul O'Brien 1976 said it was a great game. Talk about every minute matters. Could have been so different had Wire kicked the penalty or drop goal. Glad they didn't though. Deserved the win for Wigan, and another chance of silverware gone. For Kev, I came here to win trophies brown. There you go.
Bit of much.
Yeah, so it wasn't a classic game.
It was.
In the bits that I saw in terms of the skill factor. It wasn't beautifully executed from what I was seeing, but it was...
There was some really good execution in between the knock-ons and penalties.
Yeah, they are. They're scrappy at times. But listen, you were there on the day, and, you know, I'm just looking at the team lineup that you've... This is the strongest lineup you've had out in weeks, months, isn't it? So tell us about the day. Look,
whatever Rich wants to say about Sam Tompkins, we've had that conversation over and over again. He is a top-class player. And on top of that, Anthony Gelling is one of the best centres in Super League over the last 3 seasons. John Bateman is one of the best players in Super League over the last 3 seasons. And Sean O'Loughlin, we all know what he offers. Oliver Gildart being able to play his first full 80 minutes. We're talking there in Gelling, Gildart, Bateman and Tompkins of the Sam variety. 4 players who haven't played in 80 minutes in 2 months.
Yeah.
So I think what's they've been able to do and just cling on was reflective of the situation that you know we were going to fade. Joe Burgess walked out to do kickoffs. Never seen him do a kickoff in my life. Never seen him kick a ball in my life. And then to expect him under the pressure circumstances of that late on kick to not do something daft.
Yeah.
I just think it's a bit harsh on the lad.
Yeah.
But we got away with it. I think we deserved to get away with it. Wigan were both the best side and the worst side in this game.
Okay.
They were...
And Warrington were the average side.
No, below average. But,
no, but I mean in terms of
But Wigan's attack was a lot crisper when the ball actually wasn't dropped by the forwards, who were culpable for more of the errors. Really, I mean, there were some errors from people like Marshall and Williams who racked up a few errors, but they were more in trying to do something positive in the attacking end of the field.
Yeah.
The problem errors were the ones that came off the forwards. Tompkins dropped a kick. It was one I'm not sure he would ever have got close to, and he certainly wasn't. Well, he got close to it. I'm not sure he was ever going to catch it, but it certainly wasn't out when Joe Burgess ran in front, stood under him, and basically, if a defender had got there, it would have been a penalty. Let's put it that way.
Right, I see.
So that didn't help him, but yeah, he put that down, and yeah, he sort of read Kirk Gidley's dummy for the try at the end. Kirk Gidley was very good for Warrington. Dec Patton played the game instead of Kevin Brown, but actually, listening to Kevin Brown's interview, they were training all week with Dec Patton,
and Kevin Brown, they just thought, let's try and get away with an injection for the game and play him.
Okay.
So it probably disrupted Wire a little bit less than it might have felt like a withdrawal in the warm-up would, because Patton had been training all week alongside Gidley for the game. But Gidley played really well. He was let down a little bit, I suppose, by the kicking of the other players around him. Warrington did what they do. They made a few metres. Yeah. They were able to get quickish play of the balls more regularly than Wigan were able to, but Wigan defended the middle of the pitch a lot better than they had been doing recently. There was the slip up on the goal line for the Kurt Gidley dummy, and Savelio's try was after a bit of pressure because we'd made a few errors, given away a few penalties. But Wigan were the worst team because they made more errors, but in particular gave away a lot of penalties in the game. I think the penalty count was 14 conceded. It's not good enough for us, that.
It's a broad penalty count as well, 14-7 he finished.
Yeah, and this is like, the third week in a row that we've been on the wrong end of a big penalty count loss, and so we're putting ourselves under pressure, and these players returning from injury, putting themselves under pressure. But when we were able to go forward and not lose possession, Tompkins was so much better at organising the plays, both in attack and on the goal line in defence, in the first half, in the first 20 minutes of the second half, before we put ourselves under too much pressure, probably, with what went on. We had no possession in territory, really. About a third of the possession in territory in the second half.
Right.
Whereas in the first half, the game swung a little bit on the Liam Marshall drop. Not drop. Like when he couldn't pick up the kick from Luluai, the kick just curved a little bit more towards the sideline than it needed to. He couldn't. He was torn between putting his foot on it, but that probably would have seen him get tackled into touch, or trying to pick it up, and it was a difficult pick up. He made more difficult by the delay of thinking, "Do I put my foot on it?"
Yeah.
And if he'd have picked that up clean and scored at that point, and Wigan would have gone to 16-0 up, and praise be, we were kicking goals, so we might have even been 18-0, you never would know. But if that had happened at that stage, Wigan would have been well ahead. If Stefan Ratchford had been sin-binned in the first 5 minutes, like he probably should have been, certainly should have been for a clear, deliberate trip, then, Wigan might have been able to take that advantage even earlier and build a lead up at that stage. That was evened out a little bit by a forward pass for Liam Marshall's try from Anthony Gelling, although, of course, Liam Marshall should have been stopped by Ryan Atkins, who'd just come off scoring a wonderfully worked, impossible to stop try, I feel. Especially if you're not prepared. I don't know the line he ran, the speed he ran it, and the height he jumped to take that kick for his first try from Ryan Atkins. And it's hard to give him praise because of all the players on the pitch that I dislike, he's the man on the pitch that I dislike the most in almost all circumstances. Don't know him off the field, but on the field, not a big fan. But what he did here was exceptional. Great line, great pace, great jump, great take. And then his second try was helped out by Tompkins getting caught up at the ruck because Wigan had fallen off a tackle. Tiredness, I guess, was showing at that stage.
Yeah.
And then Liam Marshall shoved Ryan Atkins off, didn't he? And Ryan Atkins had no answer for what Marshy could do.
There you go.
Both wingers at that point were scoring tries. The big break for Wigan in this was John Bateman's try. Now that came off the back of Sam Tompkins again finding space and being able to deliver the ball at the right time, which we also saw on Joe Burgess' first try. Mm-hmm. So you've got to see those things. And watching as a fan from behind the sticks in the second half when we were defending that line, Tompkins talked so much more to the other players about where they needed to be and that sort of thing, and prepared us for the next play much more regularly and consistently than what Tierney was doing. So our goal line defence should improve, I would suspect. For Warrington, I mean, Wigan kicked the first ever 40-20 of the season as well, by the way.
Oh, really? You waited until now to do that? And
it was the one it was the kick. It was Sam Powell's kick that was forced because of a really good set by Warrington pegging us back.
Right.
Warrington just couldn't take the chances that the meters the game gave them, and that Wigan's penalties and errors gave them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And it's been that case all the penalties we gave away, most of them were just beyond kickable range, as was shown, or accurate kickable range, as was shown in the end, I suppose. And the errors, so they were getting scrums near our line and not being able to make them pay. They were getting penalties to clear their own half regularly, but not being able to make them pay because, I don't know, they're just not consistently good enough in attack, are they, Warren?